I'm standing in the middle of my wedding reception, blindfolded, with my mouth around another man's leg, pulling a garter belt with my teeth while my wife stands behind me laughing. The entire room is recording this on their phones, and I have no idea what's happening to me. This wasn't supposed to be my wedding day. This was supposed to be the happiest moment of my life, the day I married the woman of my dreams in front of everyone we loved. Instead, it became the day that shattered my trust, destroyed my sense of intimacy, and left me questioning everything about the person I just vowed to spend my life with. When I took off that blindfold and saw what had really happened, when I realized the scope of what they'd done to me, something broke inside me that I'm not sure can ever be fixed. The worst part, it's all on video. Multiple videos. And those videos are still out there, still being shared, still making me relive the most humiliating moment of my life over and over again. You might think this is just about a harmless wedding prank gone wrong, but this story is about so much more than that. It's about the moment you realize the person you trust most in the world sees you completely differently than you see yourself. It's about how one moment can unravel years of love and trust. And it's about the videos that make sure you can never, ever forget. But to understand how I got here, how a simple wedding tradition turned into the defining trauma of my marriage, I need to take you back to where it all began. My name? Well, let's call me David. I'm not exactly the type of guy who usually shares personal stories on the internet, but after months of this eating away at me, I need to get this out. I need someone to tell me if I'm crazy, if I'm overreacting, or if what happened to me was as messed up as it feels. I'm a pretty straightforward guy. I work in accounting, I like my routines, I value respect and honesty above almost everything else. I'm not someone who's comfortable being the center of attention, especially not as the butt of a joke. My friends know this about me, my family knows this, and my wife. Well, my wife definitely knew this. Sarah and I had been together for 4 years before we got engaged. She's everything I'm not: outgoing, spontaneous, loves being the life of the party. I fell in love with her energy, her ability to light up a room just by walking into it. She brought out a side of me I didn't know existed, made me more social, more willing to take risks. But here's the thing about Sarah that becomes important later: she's always been someone who pushes boundaries. Not in a malicious way, but she's always testing limits, seeing how far she can go before someone says, that's enough. With her friends, with her family, and yes, with me. Most of the time, I found it charming. She'd get me to try foods I'd never eat, go to parties I'd normally avoid, take spontaneous trips that terrified and thrilled me. Looking back now, I realize I should have paid more attention to how she handled it when I did say, that's enough. Because the pattern was always the same: she'd push a little further, then apologize and say she thought I could handle it, that she was just trying to help me loosen up. Our wedding planning was intense. Sarah had dreamed of this day since she was little, and she wanted everything to be perfect. We're talking about a $40,000 wedding with 150 guests, professional photographers, videographers, a wedding planner, the works. The wedding planner, Janet, was this older woman who'd been doing weddings for 20 years. She had all these traditional games and activities that she swore by. The garter toss was one of them, though she mentioned she had some fun variations that always got great reactions. I wasn't thrilled about the garter tradition to begin with. The whole thing felt a bit too public for my taste. The idea of lifting up my new wife's dress in front of our families and friends, sliding my hands up her leg while everyone watched and cheered, it made me uncomfortable. But Sarah was excited about it, said it would be fun and traditional, so I agreed. During our rehearsal dinner, I remember Janet pulling Sarah aside and whispering something to her. Sarah's eyes lit up and she started giggling with her bridesmaids. When I asked what was so funny, she just said Janet had some surprise ideas to make the reception more memorable. The groomsmen were acting weird too. My brother-in-law Mark, who's married to Sarah's sister, kept making these cryptic comments about how the reception was going to be unforgettable and how I should just go with it when things got interesting. At the time, I thought he was just excited about the party. The wedding ceremony itself was perfect. Absolutely perfect. Sarah looked stunning. I managed not to cry during my vows much, and for those 30 minutes, everything felt exactly like it was supposed to. This was at the beginning of our life together, the foundation of everything we'd build. The reception started great too. Good food, great music, everyone seemed to be having an amazing time. Sarah was glowing, dancing with everyone, making sure all our guests felt included. This was her element, and watching her work, the room filled me with this incredible pride. This brilliant, beautiful, charismatic woman had chosen me. About 2 hours into the reception, Janet appeared at our table with her clipboard and that professional wedding planner's smile. "All right, you two, it's time for the traditional games. We're going to start with the garter toss." I felt that familiar flutter of anxiety, but Sarah squeezed my hand and whispered, "It'll be fun, I promise." So I stood up, straightened my tie, and prepared to get through what I assumed would be a mildly embarrassing but ultimately harmless tradition. The DJ called everyone to gather around the dance floor. I remember looking out at all these faces: my parents, Sarah's parents, my college friends, Sarah's work colleagues, family members I only saw at weddings and funerals. They were all smiling, some already pulling out their phones to record the moment. That's when Mark appeared with this black silk blindfold in his hands. Surprise. Mark announced to the crowd, "We're going to make this a little more interesting. David's going to remove the garter, blindfolded." The crowd erupted in cheers and laughter. I looked at Sarah, expecting her to roll her eyes or shake her head to rescue me from this added layer of embarrassment. Instead, she was beaming, clapping her hands together like this was the best idea she'd ever heard. "Oh my God, yes," she said loud enough for everyone to hear. "This is going to be hilarious." I should have said no right then. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to decline politely, to suggest we just do the traditional version. But looking around at all those expectant faces, seeing how excited Sarah was, feeling the weight of everyone's attention. "Come on, David," someone shouted from the crowd. "Don't be a party pooper. It'll be over in 30 seconds, Sarah whispered in my ear. "Just play along, everyone's having such a great time." So I laughed. I forced a smile and said, "All right, let's do this." Because that's what good sports do, right? That's what husbands do. They make their wives happy. They entertain the guests. They go along with the fun even when it makes them uncomfortable. Mark tied the blindfold around my eyes and the world went dark. The last thing I saw was Sarah settling into the chair in the middle of the dance floor, smoothing down her wedding dress, giving me an encouraging smile. The last time I would ever trust her completely. Because what I didn't know, what I couldn't possibly have known, as I knelt down in front of what I thought was my wife, was that Sarah had already slipped out of that chair. In her place sat Mark, wearing shorts and Sarah's garter while she stood behind him, ready to guide me through the most humiliating experience of my life. "Okay, honey, I'm right here," I heard Sarah's voice say. With the blindfold on, I couldn't see the crowd, couldn't see their faces, couldn't see the phones already recording. All I could do was trust the voice of the woman I just married. "Just walk forward a little bit," she guided me. "That's it, perfect." I could hear the crowd getting excited, people laughing and cheering. Someone, I think it was my cousin Jake, yelled out, "This is going to be epic." The energy in the room was electric. Everyone seemed to be having the time of their lives, and despite my nerves, I started to relax a little bit. Maybe this would be fun. Maybe I was overthinking it. Sarah sounded so happy, so excited. "Okay, now get down on your knees," she instructed. I lowered myself down, my dress pants hitting the dance floor. I could feel the fabric of what I assumed was Sarah's wedding dress in front of me. My hands reached out tentatively and I made contact with legs, but something felt wrong immediately. The legs were too muscular, too hairy. For a split second, confusion flashed through my mind, but before I could process it fully, Sarah's voice cut through my thoughts. "That's it, baby, you found it." The crowd was losing it. I could hear people whistling, laughing, someone was actually cackling. I thought they were just excited about the blindfolded aspect, thought they were having fun watching me fumble around. My fingers found the garter around what I thought was Sarah's thigh. It was positioned exactly where it should be, felt exactly like it should feel. I started to slide it down, going slowly and carefully because I didn't want to be rough with my new wife. "Come on, David," someone yelled. "Put some effort into it." I pulled a little harder, working the garter down the leg. That's when I heard Sarah's voice again, closer now, right near my ear. "With your mouth, with your mouth." The crowd went absolutely wild when Sarah shouted that. I could hear people cheering, clapping, someone was yelling, "Oh my God," over and over. The energy was infectious, and despite my embarrassment, I found myself getting caught up in it. This was my wedding day. These were our friends and family. Everyone was having fun, including Sarah. I was being a good sport, playing along with what was clearly a beloved tradition that Janet had done at other weddings. So I leaned forward and grasped the garter with my teeth. The moment my mouth made contact with the leg, the crowd's reaction intensified tenfold. People were shrieking with laughter. I could hear phones being pulled out. Someone yelled, "Are you getting this?" I pulled the garter down with my teeth, slowly and carefully. It was awkward and embarrassing, but I kept telling myself it would be over soon, that everyone would have a good laugh, and then we could move on to the next part of the reception. But then the garter got stuck around the shoe and I couldn't get it off. "Here, let me help you," I heard Sarah say, and I felt her hands join mine, helping to work the garter over the shoe and off completely. The crowd was cheering like we'd just won the World Series. I could hear my dad's distinctive laugh. Sarah's mom was clapping and saying something I couldn't make out. The energy in the room was unlike anything I'd ever experienced, all of it focused on me, all of it celebratory and joyful. "Okay, honey," Sarah said, her voice practically vibrating with excitement. "Stand up and take off your blindfold." I stood up, garter in hand, still smiling because everyone else was so happy. This had clearly been a huge hit. Sarah sounded thrilled, the crowd was going crazy, and I had successfully completed what was obviously a cherished wedding tradition. I reached up and pulled off the blindfold, blinking as my eyes adjusted to the light, ready to see Sarah's beaming face and accept the congratulations of our guests for being such a good sport. Instead, I saw Mark. Mark was sitting in the chair where Sarah should have been, wearing his groomsman's shirt and tie on top, but shorts on the bottom. He was grinning at me with this expression I'd never seen before, part amusement, part something else I couldn't identify. For a moment, my brain couldn't process what I was seeing. This had to be wrong. This had to be some kind of mistake. I looked around frantically, and there was Sarah, standing about 3 feet behind the chair, her hands clasped together, her face lit up with the biggest smile I'd ever seen. The crowd's laughter intensified when they saw my expression. The confusion, the dawning realization, the way my smile slowly faded as I understood what had just happened. I had just spent the last 5 minutes on my knees in front of my brother-in-law. I had just pulled a garter down his leg with my mouth while my wife stood behind him, directing me, encouraging me, making sure I did a thorough job. "Surprise," Mark said, still grinning. "Did you see his face?" someone in the crowd yelled. "That was priceless." I looked around at all these people I loved, all these people who loved me, and every single one of them was laughing. Not just chuckling or smiling full on, doubled over, tears streaming down their faces laughing. At me. The professional photographer was still shooting. The videographer was capturing every second. I could see at least 4 people with their phones out, recording my reaction, my confusion, my humiliation. "Oh my God, David, you should see your face right now," Sarah said, still laughing. "This is going to be the best wedding video ever." That's when it hit me. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. This wasn't Sarah getting caught up in the excitement and going along with someone else's idea. This was planned. The wedding planner had suggested it. Sarah had agreed to it. They had choreographed it, rehearsed it, made sure Mark had the right clothes to change into. Sarah had practiced standing behind him, had worked out exactly what to say to keep me fooled. They had all known this was going to happen. Every single person in that room except me had been in on the joke. For weeks, maybe months, while I was worried about my vows, about making sure everything was perfect for our special day, Sarah had been planning how to humiliate me in front of everyone we knew. And as I stood there, still holding the garter I'd pulled off my brother-in-law's leg with my teeth, listening to the laughter that just wouldn't stop. I realized something that would haunt me for months afterward. This moment was being recorded from multiple angles. It would exist forever. And every time someone wanted a good laugh, every time someone wanted to remember that hilarious thing that happened at David and Sarah's wedding, they would pull up these videos and watch me get destroyed all over again. I stood there for what felt like an eternity but was probably only 10 or 15 seconds, just trying to process what had happened. The laughter started to die down a little bit, and I could see people looking at me expectantly, waiting for my reaction. Sarah was still beaming, but I caught a flicker of something else in her eyes, maybe concern, maybe the first hint that my reaction wasn't what she'd expected. "David," she said, her voice a little less certain now, "are you okay?" I looked around the room again. My parents were still chuckling, but they were starting to look a little worried too. Sarah's parents were grinning and shaking their heads like this was the most clever thing they'd ever seen. My college friends were high-fiving each other, and Mark was still sitting in that chair, looking at me with an expression I was starting to realize wasn't just amusement, it was satisfaction. Like he'd gotten away with something. "That was," I started to say, then stopped, because what was it? What do you call it when your wife tricks you into putting your mouth on another man's leg at your own wedding? What do you call it when everyone you love conspires to humiliate you in front of a crowd? "Hilarious," Sarah finished for me, stepping forward and putting her arms around me. "Oh my God, honey, you were such a good sport. Everyone loved it." I forced a smile. I don't know why I did it, but I forced a smile and said, "Yeah, you really got me." The crowd started clapping and cheering again. Someone yelled, "Speech, speech." Sarah kissed me on the cheek and whispered in my ear, "Thank you for being so cool about this. I love you so much." But I wasn't being cool about it. I was drowning. The rest of the reception passed in a blur. I went through the motions, cut the cake, did the first dance, made small talk with relatives, but I felt like I was watching it all happen to someone else. People kept coming up to me all night, still laughing about the prank. "David, that was the funniest thing I've ever seen at a wedding. I can't believe you fell for it. Your face when you took off that blindfold. You're such a good sport, man. I would have been so pissed." That last comment stuck with me. I would have been so pissed. Said with this tone that implied being pissed would have been unreasonable, would have made me a bad sport, would have ruined everyone's fun. Sarah was floating on cloud nine. She kept telling people how perfectly the prank had gone, how surprised I'd been, how well I'd handled it. She'd grab my hand and squeeze it while she was telling the story, looking at me with this expression of pure adoration, like I'd just done something wonderful. "Isn't he the best?" she kept saying. "He's such an amazing sport." But every time someone brought up the prank, every time someone laughed about it, I felt this wave of humiliation wash over me again. And it was getting worse, not better. Around midnight, during a quiet moment when we were sitting at the head table, Sarah leaned over to me. "Are you having fun?" she asked. "You seem a little quiet." I looked at her, my wife of less than 12 hours, and I wanted so badly to tell her how I was feeling. But how do you tell someone that the thing that made them happiest on their wedding day made you want to disappear? How do you tell someone that their perfect moment was your worst nightmare? "I'm just tired," I said. "It's been a long day." She nodded and squeezed my hand. "I know, but wasn't it perfect? Wasn't everything just perfect?" And the terrible thing was, for her, it had been perfect. The prank had been the highlight of her wedding day. She kept talking about how everyone was still laughing about it, how people were already asking for copies of the video. The next morning, during the post-wedding brunch, it continued. More people talking about the prank, more laughter, more, "I can't believe you fell for it." Janet, the wedding planner, made a point of coming over to our table. "David, I have to tell you, in 20 years of doing weddings, that was one of the best reactions I've ever seen. You were perfect, so trusting, so willing to play along. Some grooms figure it out right away, but you really committed to it." She said this like it was a compliment. Like being trusting and willing to play along were character flaws that had made the prank more successful. "I've already had 3 other brides ask me about doing the same thing at their weddings," she continued. "You two have started a trend." After she walked away, I turned to Sarah. "A trend? Isn't that amazing?" Sarah said, not picking up on my tone. Other couples want to do what we did. We created something memorable. That's when it started to sink in. This wasn't just about our wedding anymore. This prank was going to be replicated. Other grooms were going to go through what I went through, and it would be because of what happened to me. But worse than that was what Janet had said about other grooms figuring it out right away. That meant I was especially gullible, especially trusting, especially easy to fool. I wasn't just the victim of the prank, I was the perfect victim, the one who made it work so well. During our honeymoon in Hawaii, I tried to put it behind me. I really did. Sarah was so happy, so affectionate, so grateful that I'd been such a good sport. She kept saying how proud she was of me, how much she loved that I could laugh at myself, but I wasn't laughing at myself. I was dying inside every time she brought it up. On our 4th day in Hawaii, we were having dinner at this beautiful oceanfront restaurant. Sarah was showing the videos to another couple we'd met, people we'd never see again, but she wanted to share our hilarious wedding story with them. Watching those strangers laugh at the video, watching them look at me with this mixture of amusement and pity, I finally broke. "Can we not do this right now?" I said quietly. Sarah looked at me surprised. "Do what? Show the video, talk about the prank, can we just have dinner?" "Oh my God, David, what's wrong? I was just sharing our funny story." "It's not funny to me." The words hung in the air between us. Sarah's expression shifted from confusion to something approaching concern. "What do you mean it's not funny?" "You laughed, you were fine with it." "I wasn't fine with it. I've never been fine with it. I just didn't want to ruin everyone else's good time." Sarah excused us from the other couple and we went back to our room. That's when I finally told her some of it anyway. I told her how humiliated I felt, how betrayed, how the whole thing made me feel like she didn't really know me at all. Her initial response wasn't what I'd hoped for. "David, it was just a harmless prank. Everyone thought it was hilarious, including you. You can't be serious about being upset over this." "I am serious, I'm very serious." But it was our wedding day. It was supposed to be fun and memorable, and it was. Everyone's still talking about how amazing our wedding was. That's when I realized we were living in completely different realities. In her reality, the prank had made our wedding legendary, had given everyone a story they'd tell for years. In my reality, it had ruined the most important day of my life. That conversation in Hawaii was just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, as we settled back into regular life, the full scope of what had happened started to become clear. The professional wedding video arrived 3 weeks after we got back. 2 hours of beautiful footage of our perfect day, including 15 minutes of the prank from multiple angles. Slow motion shots of my confused expression when I took off the blindfold. Close-ups of the crowd's delighted faces. Audio of every laugh, every comment, every moment of my humiliation in crystal clear detail. Sarah watched it immediately and called me at work, practically crying with laughter. "David, you have to see this video. The editor did such an amazing job, they got everyone's reactions, and the part where you realize what happened is just priceless." "I don't want to see it," I told her. "What do you mean you don't want to see it? It's our wedding video." "I don't want to see that part. Can we get a version without the prank?" There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "David, that was the highlight of the whole reception. We can't just cut it out." But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was social media. Within days of the wedding, snippets of the prank were everywhere. Someone had posted a 15-second clip on TikTok that got 50,000 views. Another person posted it on Facebook with the caption, "When wedding pranks go perfectly." My college roommate shared it on Instagram with crying, laughing emojis. Every platform, every social media site, every place where people shared funny videos, there I was, on my knees, pulling a garter off my brother-in-law's leg with my teeth while my wife laughed behind me. The comments were the worst part. "This guy is either the best sport ever or completely clueless. I'm dying. His face when he realizes, priceless." Plot twist, he knew all along and was just really committed to the bit. "This is why you don't trust your wedding party." 2 months after the wedding, we had the fight that changed everything. It started because Sarah wanted to frame a photo from the prank for our living room. Not a photo of us kissing, not a photo of our first dance, not a photo of us cutting the cake. A photo of me on my knees with the blindfold, captured at the exact moment I was pulling the garter with my teeth. "This captures the joy of our wedding day better than anything else," she said. Look how happy everyone is. Look how much fun we're all having. I'm not having fun in that photo, Sarah. I'm being humiliated. You're not being humiliated. You're being playful and fun and everything I love about you. No, I'm being tricked. I'm being lied to. I'm being made a fool of in front of everyone we know. That's when she finally got angry. David, this is ridiculous. It was a harmless prank. It was funny. Everyone loved it, including you at the time. I never loved it. I was just trying to be a good sport because I didn't want to ruin your wedding day. Well, maybe you should have ruined it. Maybe you should have said something instead of pretending everything was fine and then ambushing me with this months later. I shouldn't have had to say anything. You should have known me well enough to know I wouldn't want to be humiliated like that. It wasn't humiliation, it was a joke. It was humiliation disguised as a joke, and the fact that you can't see the difference terrifies me. We went around and around like this for hours. Sarah kept insisting it was harmless, that I was overreacting, that I needed to get over it. I kept trying to explain how betrayed I felt, how violated, how the fact that she could plan something like that without considering my feelings made me question everything about our relationship. Finally, Sarah said something that made everything clear. David, if you can't handle one little prank, how are you going to handle being married to me? This is who I am. I'm fun, I'm spontaneous, I like to surprise people. If you want some boring wife who never does anything unexpected, you married the wrong person. That's when I realized what this was really about. This wasn't about a prank. This wasn't about a wedding tradition gone wrong. This was about fundamentally different ideas of what respect looks like in a relationship. To Sarah, the prank was an expression of love. It was her way of including me in her world of spontaneity and fun. It was her way of showing everyone how good-natured and flexible I was, how perfect we were together because I could handle her wild ideas. To me, the prank was a violation of trust. It was her prioritizing the entertainment of others over my comfort and dignity. It was her making a decision about my body and my boundaries without my consent. And the most painful realization of all was this: she genuinely couldn't understand why I was upset. It wasn't that she was dismissing my feelings, she literally could not comprehend why someone would be hurt by what she saw as a loving, playful gesture. We were speaking different languages. When she said it was just a joke, she meant it was an expression of affection. When I said I felt humiliated, she heard I'm trying to make you feel bad about something that made everyone happy. But here's what finally made it click for me. I asked her how she would have felt if the situation had been reversed. What if I had planned a prank where you ended up with your mouth on another woman's body while I stood behind you directing you, and everyone recorded it and laughed? Her immediate response was, "That's completely different." How is it different? Because you're a man, men don't get humiliated the same way. And there it was. The real reason she thought this was okay, she genuinely believed that I, as a man, couldn't be truly humiliated by something like this. That male dignity worked differently than female dignity. That I should be flattered by the attention, amused by the trick, proud of how well I'd handled it. We're still married. We're still working through this, though I won't pretend it's been easy. Sarah eventually agreed to take down the social media posts, though she couldn't control what other people had already shared. She apologized, really apologized. Not just the "I'm sorry you're upset" kind of apology, but an actual acknowledgement that she had made a decision that hurt me without considering my feelings. But the damage was done in ways that go beyond just that one night. I don't trust her judgment about my boundaries anymore. When she suggests something spontaneous or unexpected, I find myself questioning whether she's really considering how it will affect me, or if she's just thinking about how fun it will be for everyone else. I can't look at our wedding photos the same way. Every picture from that reception reminds me of the moment when I realized that the people I loved most had conspired to make me look foolish. And those videos are still out there. Every few months, someone finds one of them and shares it, and I get to relive the whole thing again. Just last month, a distant cousin posted it in a family group chat with the caption, "Remember this classic." And suddenly, I was right back in that moment, feeling that same wave of humiliation wash over me. The hardest part is that I know Sarah still doesn't fully understand why this affected me so deeply. She's learned to respect that it did. She's learned not to bring it up or share the videos, but I can see in her eyes sometimes that she thinks I'm being overly sensitive. Maybe I am. Maybe this is just who I am, someone who takes things too seriously, someone who can't laugh at himself, someone who holds grudges about things that were meant to be fun. But I don't think that's it. I think what happened at my wedding was a perfect storm of things that matter to me: trust, respect, consent, and dignity. All of those things were violated in service of a joke, and the fact that everyone found it hilarious doesn't make the violation any less real. I'm sharing this story because I need to know, am I crazy? Am I overreacting? Should I just get over it like everyone keeps telling me to do? Or is it okay to feel hurt when the person you trust most in the world makes a decision that prioritizes everyone else's entertainment over your comfort and dignity? Because 6 months later, I still don't have an answer to that question. And until I do, that blindfold moment is going to keep playing in my head over and over, reminding me of the day I learned that being a good sport sometimes means accepting that your pain is the price of everyone else's pleasure. The videos are still out there. The moment is still happening, somewhere on someone's phone, ready to be shared again whenever someone needs a good laugh. And I'm still trying to figure out how to live with that.